are finally driving a production Aston Martin DB11. This, of course, is a massive, massive moment for Aston Martin. Part of what they call their second century plans. It's a brand new platform, brand new engine, brand new styling language, well, mainly new styling language. A whole lot to talk about, and I'll have to rattle through it best I can. It's a V12, it's twin turbo. We know there's a tie-up between Aston Martin and Mercedes AMG for engine supply, but this is not a Mercedes engine. This is, we're told, a completely new and fully Aston Martin engine. It's pretty impressive, I've got to say. So the numbers, 608 horsepower, 516 pound-feet of torque. The obvious questions are going to be, do we lose out on that fantastic, sharp, normally aspirated character? It's a question every car company, every sports car company has had to face in the recent years. First impressions are that it's a mighty, mighty effort. There is pretty much instant throttle response, certainly no complaints. That's helped by the fact that it's 5.2 litres, so the engine itself is already pretty big. It's not having to lean on the turbocharging too hard. It doesn't have the lag problems that you might get with a downsized engine, and it's got, as you can probably hear, plenty of kind of high-end power and character and noise. Listen to that, that's fantastic. But it's also got way more mid-range than we're used to in V12 Aston Martins. Those engines have always sounded fantastic, but they've maybe been a little bit relatively weedy in the mid-range and required some revs. Now then, the new platform, it's not an evolution of the vertical horizontal methodology as they described it. It's all new, uses pressed aluminium, and it's still bonded together like the old VH system. It is scalable, so it will underpin the next generation of Vantage and various other models that are going to spin off it. So it's a bit longer in the wheelbase, and importantly that means they can put the engine a little bit further back than they could before. We were told that in the DB9, the V12, the first two cylinders were in front of the front axle. Now with this longer wheelbase, they can put the whole engine behind the front axle, and the gearbox, the ZF 8-speed that we're familiar with from loads of other cars, is mounted in the back, which is unique to Aston Martin. Nobody else does that, and it means that all the really heavy stuff, engine and gearbox, sits between the axles, and that's really, really important for weight distribution. There is a lot of weight. It's not a light car. We were quoted a dry weight just shy of 1,800 kilos, which is about on a par with the DB9, which is pretty impressive considering turbo engines and all the extra bits that come with them add quite a lot of weight. But by keeping all that heavy stuff centered in the car, they can create a sense of agility that you don't get in a car like perhaps a Bentley Continental GT, which you might consider a rival. That's a big heavy car, engine sits out the front, you're always fighting that mass. This is the first Aston Martin to be developed by Matt Becker, who Aston Martin poached from Lotus. Now, Matt is a thoroughly decent bloke, very PH-y kind of guy. You would like him if you met him, and obviously we have long liked the way that Lotus's handle, and it's very interesting to see what he's done with Aston Martin. Now, in the way of these things, we've got various driver modes. We've got what they call a GT mode, Sport Plus, separate controls for the same on the dampers. The stated intention is that even in Sport Plus mode, the damping should be usable. And so it proves there's a lovely, lovely fluidity that keeps coming back to that weight distribution. It just gives Aston Martin such an advantage. They're not having to hide any unfavourable characteristics like understeer or oversteer. They can just let the car's balance shine through, and that makes it predictable and fun as well. Safe but exciting. Everything you'd want, really. This is the first electric power steering system that Aston Martin has ever used. Gives them all sorts of gadgets and gizmos to throw in, like park assist and all that kind of thing, but it feels very nice. I've got to say, perhaps not as weighty or as natural as the old hydraulic system, but it's got a super direct response, feels really good. I need to talk about the interior as well, because it's another massive step up. Now, you may recognise some of this switchgear as being Mercedes as well. Previously it was Ford and Volvo bits, so I don't think having Mercedes bits is any bad thing. The Mercedes nav is one of the best in the business, I think, so way better than the Garmin systems that we had in the old DB9s. I think it manages to look both classically Aston Martin, but very much a huge step up. I think if you're a DB9 owner and you went into the showroom to sit in this car, without even driving it, you'd think, wow, this is a massive step up. And then when you do actually get behind the wheel, I think that translates to the driving experience as well. And I think we can be very, very cheerful about Aston Martin's future based on this opening salvo of its future product range. Right, you may well have just picked up from that I think this is a fairly impressive machine, and it is. Aston Martin badly needed to demonstrate it can actually move with the times, and the DB11 achieves that with some style. It can waft like a GT, and if you find yourself on the scenic route, it can entertain like a proper driver's car too. That's no mean feat, given the clean sheet approach to the engine, the platform, and the design inside and out. A 911 Turbo will probably still be the default everyday supercar, and if you want proper grown-up waftability, a Bentley Continental GT or an S-Class Coupe are probably still the mature choice. But if you want a car that can cover that whole spectrum, I think the DB11 achieves that, and with some style.